again. Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to be beginning our journey through the individual cards of the Minor Arcana, and specifically with the suit of wands. So on the table for today, I've got the first 5 cards from the suit of wands, the ace, and then the numbered cards 2 through to 5. You'll notice that I've got 2 decks here. We're working with the standard Waite-Smith Tarot as our mainstay, but I'll also be referring to my Golden Dawn deck to shed some light on some of Pamela Colman Smith's illustrations and where they came from. Okay, so let's start at the beginning with the ace. This is Pamela Colman Smith's rendition of the Ace of Wands. You can see what looks like a divine hand emerging from a cloud, bearing a quite verdant wand. Actually, this is not your sort of ornate carved magician's wand. This is actually quite a crude sprouting branch. You can see green shoots on there. Let's look at the landscape as well. Grey sky, but then there is this quite verdant landscape beneath the wand, a valley with a river, and then sort of behind the river a hill with a castle. So aces in general represent pure potential. So what we have here is the pure potential of the element of fire. It's the pure potential of this suit and everything that it stands for. So all 4 aces, you'll notice, are held by this divine hand emerging from a cloud, and the symbolism of that is that the power of the suit is being offered as a gift, and also it shows the power of the suit manifesting in the real world as a gift from the divine. So what does that mean with regards to the wand and with fire? Well, the suit of wands, we've already said, is the suit of creative energy, procreative energy, libido, artistic energy, work energy, passion, impulsiveness. So the ace is the manifestation of all those things. Aces always represent new beginnings. This is the start of the process. It's the creative seed. It's the procreative seed. It's, in practical terms, this is the potential for a new work project, the potential to create something new and artistic. The passionate potential of a relationship, the sexual potential of a relationship even. All of those things. But the key to this ace is it is raw potential. For this to be made manifest and for it to mean anything, we have to take the gift of the wand from the hand that offers it. So, if an ace like this appears in a reading, view it as that gift of potential. View it as the potential for a new beginning, the potential to start a new project, but the key is that has to be grasped by human hands. As always with the tarot, you'll discover more and more as we go through these lessons. Each of these cards has a light aspect and a dark aspect. Now, it depends on the technique you use within your readings. Some people will actually shuffle their cards in a way that, obviously, some cards come out of the deck upright, some come out reversed. This is a recognised technique. It's, most people refer to this technique as employing reversals in your reading. So, I mean, for instance, if you were shuffling, you'd probably, before you shuffled, you'd kind of do this with your deck and basically stagger it so that some are reversed, some are upright, and then you'd shuffle the deck thoroughly. You obviously don't know what's going to come out upright and what's going to come out reversed. The reverse meaning either inverts the meaning of the card or it weakens the meaning of the card. Now, reversals is a relatively, it is a 20th century technique, I think. A lot of people choose not to read with reversals, but then if that's the case, very often you have to decide the light or the dark aspect of the card in the context of the reading. You have to sort of make that intuitive choice as whether the card denotes that light or dark aspect. In the case of the ace, going back to the Ace of Wands, we've spoken about the light aspect of the card, the positives. For instance, if it appeared reversed in a reading, we are looking at that failure of potential or potential withheld, you know, even just in the most literal sense. Upside down, if that hand releases the wand, it falls into nothingness. Potential lost, maybe. So again, whether you choose, we'll look at the technique of reversals in more detail when we get to the stage of actually looking at card reading techniques. But bear it in mind as we go through the lessons on the cards. We will always be looking at the positive and the negative, the light and the dark, you know, the good and the bad. There are no, even the most bleak looking cards, there are no good and bad cards. There's good and bad to be had in all of these images, you know, and it's a case of actually intuitively realizing what is implied within the context of your reading. Reversals obviously is one way of employing that within your reading. Otherwise, use your intuition. Okay, so that's the ace. Pure potential waiting to be grasped. Okay, so let me just show you before we move on. That's the ace in the Golden Dawn deck. Interestingly, it's a branch which is shooting, and when you look at the shoots, there are all sorts of colours there. There's esoteric significance in that. I won't go into it here because it would take too long, and also I'm not that esoterically knowledgeable, but you can see that the sense of growth is also implied in this image, but in a very different way. There's a real sense of energy here. So let's move on to the 2. Now the 2 is also a card of potential, but in this instance, the potential has been grasped. And that is a principle with the 2s in general throughout the minor arcana. It's potential that has been taken hold of and is now in human hands, ready to be expanded on and to be explored, which is exactly what we see here in this image. You can see what looks like a nobleman standing on a castle rampart looking out across the kingdom. There is a wand on either side, so this is a 2. It represents duality. So in a way, that potential now, it's in human hands and can be communicated outwards. Now, if you look closely on this image, the potential is symbolised by a globe in his hand. In effect, this man is holding the world in his hands. So this is a very powerful symbol of potential grasped. He's not acted on it yet, but actually he has everything he needs to make his project work or to make his vision real. Okay, 2s bring duality. Duality can be positive. There can also be an aspect of conflict in duality as well. The duality in this card is actually displayed very specifically in the image itself. If we look at the bottom of the card, on the rampart walls, there is a depiction of 2 crossed flowering branches. Now, one of those is a lily. The second branch is a rose. So this is a recurring theme in Pamela Coleman Smith's deck. The symbolism of the rose and the lily is very, very important in this deck. You see it reoccurring time and time again. On the original card backs on the 1909 edition showed an alternating pattern of roses and lilies, so that shows how important the concept is. What it shows is passion as exemplified through the rose, and purity as exemplified through the lily. Now, for this potential to work and to do good, those two things have to be balanced, particularly in this suit. Wands are all about fiery passion, but fiery passion without anything to temper it can be a very dangerous thing. So passion tempered by purity of intention, a wonderful concept. So in the Golden Dawn deck, the key word employed for this is dominion. This is the card of dominion. So again, expressed in the image, the nobleman in this card has dominion over the sphere that he holds. So if you see that globe as a metaphor for the potential that he's been given, it's for him to shape and to form. So potential like the ace, but it's potential that is now in human hands, and there is a responsibility to take that gift and to make something good of it. If we flip this card over, if we're going to look at the dark aspect of this card, view it as squandered potential. Think of the balance between the rose and the lily as being upset. Fiery passions are not tempered, so actually the potential that he's been given, the resources he's been given, he might squander away, he might misuse, he might throw them, they might just not be used at all. There is also a potential to use what you have against others. So it's basically using the potential you've been given for the wrong motives, maybe. So all of those things, a failure to, the failure to sort of achieve your potential, to reach your potential, or even blocked potential. When a card like this appears reversed, or if we're looking at its dark aspect, we've got to ask ourselves, what stands in the way? What's getting in the way? Okay. Moving on to the 3. We're moving forward from potential, and we actually see some movement. So let's look at the Golden Dawn card first. Not the most clear of keywords on this one. It's referred to as the card of established strength. So without the image, that can be quite ambiguous. It begins to make a little more sense when you look at Pamela Colman Smith's rendition. We can see a nobleman again. It could be the same nobleman, we're not sure. But this time he's not on a castle rampart. He's actually standing on a cliff looking out to sea. 3 wands surrounding him this time. If you look closely at this image, you will see that there are ships setting sail. Well, we can't actually see whether they're setting sail or whether they're returning. Whichever way it is, the meaning of the card remains unaltered. The story here, think of this guy as a merchant. He's taken the resources and the potential that he had here, and he has probably used them to, let's say he's used that potential, maybe that potential was money, he's used them to buy goods. He's then sent his ships out to trade. What we have here is somebody who is waiting for the ships to come back in, bearing the profit, or, sort of maybe he sent them out with the money to trade and to go and buy goods on his behalf. Whatever the case, the point of this image is that he set the wheels in motion. He's actually initiated his project. So he's actually waiting for this to come to fruition. So that makes sense if you think of it in in work terms. You can think of this as the work project that you've begun. You've put a huge amount of hard work into it, but it's not finished. you're waiting to see the results. There's maybe more effort to go in before you get the results. How does that translate if we look at it in personal terms, maybe terms of passion and relationships? Again, if we look back at the two, maybe with the two in a relationship, it's the potential to take that step, the potential to make your move, in a way, this is somebody who wants to make that relationship proposal, but actually what he has in his hands is the ability to show a prospective partner that he can go the course, or that he can offer them a good life, or, that he is responsible, he has the potential to be responsible, all those things. This is a guy that's in control. So for somebody moving in the sphere of relationships, or if this guy is attracted to someone that he wants to impress, everything is there. By contrast, the three, this is somebody who's kind of stepped out and made the proposal. Not necessarily got the answer back, but he's taken the brave step. This person has put themselves out there. Let's look at this. Again, maybe this is effort that has failed. Maybe this is somebody who's put their eggs in the wrong basket and the ships are never going to come back in. Maybe it's also someone who's impatient, who is impulsive, is very good at setting the wheels in motion, but then actually doesn't have the patience to see things through to their conclusion. So there you have it. Wheels in motion, results not yet known, the need for patience, and the need for consistency. Okay. Moving on to the 4. Numerologically, 4 is a number of stability. So far we've had the singularity of the 1, the duality of the 2, where potential meets the real world. With the 3, that sort of triangular number, you have the potential meeting the real world plus forward motion. Whereas the 4 brings us into the realm of the 4 square. There is a completion with the 4, and that's exactly what this card is about. The Golden Dawn calls this the card of perfected work. So unlike the 3, this is actually, even the words are very explicit. This is a stage of initial completion. This is not the ultimate culmination, because obviously this is only the 4th card out of 10. But think of this as having completed the first stage of your journey, and then that means you're ready to move on to the next, more challenging stage. What we see in the image is a celebration. We see what could actually be a wedding canopy. The wands set up in a 4 square arrangement with a canopy of fruits, flowers and leaves. You can see there's 2 women running towards the canopy waving garlands. There is another party coming behind them. Let's look at the background. This is another one of Pamela Colman Smith's stage cards, so we almost do see a play being reenacted here. If you look at the backdrop, you can see a castle. You can also see a bridge. We can't see the river, but the bridge is obviously coming over a road or a river. Bridges are very symbolically significant. They do denote crossing from one side to the other, thereby leaving behind that first stage to come to that that initial completion. So the journey that we've seen in the first 3 cards is on the other side of the river where the castle is. This is the completion on this side. So if we look at the wedding canopy symbolism here, in traditional fortune telling with tarot, the 4 of Wands was often considered to be the wedding card. It's very apt, because if you think of a wedding, it is the culmination of a relationship, but it's not the end. It's actually the beginning of the rest of your life. So, whereas this guy was waiting for the answer to his proposal, here we see the wedding. So on personal terms, this can be an emotional or a sexual union. It can be the agreement to commit to each other and the celebration of that. Work terms, it's the completion of that big project successfully. Artistically, it's the completion of that oil painting you've been working on, the completion of that first draft of your novel. Whatever you're working on, it's actually the first fruits of success, but it's not the end. We don't rest on our laurels. My personal experience of this card coming to life for me was when I'd written my first book, and when that first book got published. I never thought that I could see that project through to completion. Initially, I'd asked to work with someone else who had eventually just turned around and said, no, only you can write this book. It's something you have to do yourself. I completed the book. It got published. And then the reality of this hit home to me, because I realised that if I could do it once, I had the potential to do it again. And potentially next time I could do it better. And to date, I've had 2 books published, plus 2 booklets as well. So I now have 4 publications to my name. So it proves the point behind this card. Yes, we complete that journey, but this is only 4 out of 10. 4 is a number of initial completion, unlike 10, which is a culmination. So as the wedding is the beginning of the rest of a couple's life, with the completed work project, it denotes that we can now move, with the experience we've gained, we can move on to greater things. So this is a very positive and affirming card. What happens if we reverse it, or if we look at the darker aspect of this card? Lots of things. Maybe we've come to that point of completion, but we're disappointed with the results. Maybe on personal terms, we're moving towards that place of commitment, but we've got our reservations. Maybe there is somebody denoted in this card that is completion shy. You get 3/4 of the way and then you're frightened to see the rest through, or you lose, your attention span starts to wane. It can also be that fulfillment and completion has been blocked or obstructed. So if we haven't reached this point, we've got to ask ourselves what's got in the way, what's stopped us from getting over the finish line. That is a crucial question to ask, because this is very much about having completed the first stage. How can we move on if we haven't actually got to that first goalpost? So all of those questions to be asked if this card appears reversed. But on the whole, it's a positive card, and sometimes even in its negative aspect, that positivity is not necessarily completely diminished. Maybe it's just a little bit diluted. Maybe we did reach the finish line, but it was a bit of an ordeal to get there, and that took the sheen off it. So again, with all of these meanings, look at the context of the cards around in your reading. Very often, no single card stands on its own. The narrative that the card tells will always be coloured by what comes before it, what comes after, and very often what's on either side of it too. So there we have it. Let's move on to the 5. Where can you go after you've reached that stage of completion? Well, you can only go upwards because there is more to do. And to move upwards often requires challenge and stepping out of our comfort zone. That is one of the other meanings of this. This can be the comfort zone. And if it's reversed, maybe we've stayed in that comfort zone for too long and we need to step out of it. That's very much what the 5 is about. If you think of 5 as an odd number and think of it numerologically as upsetting the stability of the 4. So that is exactly what's going on here. The Golden Dawn refers to this as the card of strife. Okay? And when you look at Pamela Coleman Smith's image, you can see 5 young men. Ones are entangled in what looks like a battle. But then if you look a little bit closer, when you look at the expressions on their faces, this doesn't seem to be enemies fighting. There doesn't seem to be any animosity here. But what I think this is sport. This is gaming. It's a play fight. Think martial arts. Yes, it's combat, but it's a test of wits, it's a test of skill, and it's a test of strength. It's actually strength and skill building. This is the whole point of this. This is the kind of struggle that we have to go through to learn and to grow and to hone our skills. So, having sort of fulfilled that initial goal, and again going back to my own experience, I finish the first book, it gets published. I then start work on my second book. How can I make this better? How can I improve on what I did previously? And to be perfectly honest, the second book was a damn sight more difficult than the first, precisely because I was aware of the failings of the first book. I'd gone back over it and I was looking and saying, how can I do this better? How can I write this in a more fluid manner? So this struggle for strength, it's a struggle to strengthen. It's learning new skills through that struggle. You can see here what they're actually learning is combat skills, but in an amicable way. This is not a fight for life, incidentally. This is basically a struggle to learn. So this is when we are out of our comfort zone in work. It's when that creative project that we've conceived and started seems just that bit too big for us to achieve, and we have to really push the boundaries, go beyond the comfort zone to have any chance of getting there and completing it. Relationship wise, you know, we all hit difficult patches. This is when, if that's the wedding, that's when reality sets in. That's post honeymoon. In purely passion and sexual terms, this is maybe when partners have different expectations about intimacy, and maybe one partner is willing to experiment, another is not so sure. Again, you're stepping out of your comfort zone. You're learning new skills. You know, you're not confident. The great thing about this card is the other really affirming message about this is it's all right to fall down. It's all right to make mistakes. The whole point of this is if you do end up flat on the ground, you'll get back up, you'll pick up the wand, you'll re-engage in the fight. You will have learnt from that experience, and gradually your fighting skills grow. So that's the wonderfully affirming thing about this card, is it gives us the space to fail. And that's all part of the growth process. So if we look at the negatives, if we reverse it, again, it can be a failure to engage. It can be shying away from the struggle, a willingness, a lack of willingness to push boundaries. It can be also you get knocked down and you allow your confidence to be knocked, so you don't get back up. You just give up straight away. Possibly another darker aspect of this card is that not everyone is fighting with good intentions. When this is upright, everyone is in it to learn. When it's reversed, maybe there's someone in that group who will use a few dirty tactics to get ahead of the pack. So they're all things that we have to take into consideration when this card appears. Again, look at the context of the other cards around, form your own judgments. So there we have it. That is part 1 of the numbered cards from the suit of wands. In the next lesson, we will look at cards number 6 through to 10, and then that will allow us finally to move on to the court cards. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next time. If you've enjoyed this lesson and found it helpful, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel to find out when I share new videos or go live. You can also find me on Instagram at Chris Butler Artist, on Twitter at Butler Tarot, and on Facebook at Sacred Tarot. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.